Hello and welcome to The Good, the Bad and the Worst, a podcast where we watch movie trilogies and decide which movie has been scratching itself again. I'm your host Griner, and joining me tonight...
I'm just sitting here in my fat guy wheelchair, thinking about how that Cobain pussy had to come around and ruin it all.
And I'm Luke Morgan, and boys, it's time to party like a fireman party.
That was almost my quote. How good's that?
All right, what are we doing, Luke? This is the Aronofsky trilogy. Justify this garbage.
See, I was almost just going to throw it straight to Conan and be like, justify it for me. But, so, Aronofsky himself has always pitched The Wrestler and Black Swan as a two-part, duology, basically. At one point, it was one film. He wrote a story about a ballet dancer falling in love with a professional wrestler, and their stories were intertwined and, going through the same sort of things. It eventually became two movies, obviously. So I feel like The Wrestler and Black Swan, I don't need to explain it all. I feel like watching them movies is a clear, very similar narrative that goes down. I hadn't watched The Whale, so it was more of a guess on my part that it was this. But it's easier to say it features a lead protagonist who has a self-destructive habit and an obsession. He has an estranged relationship with one particular member of his family, and that ends with that character's demise.
And
well.
they float, they fly to their demise.
They fly to their
All three
demise.
of them fly to their demise. I think that's the best thing. I would argue that obsession is not a theme in basically any of these movies. Maybe Black Swan. Because you said that was the link last week, and I watched it with that lens. I watched it with that lens, and I'm like, "What the hell is Luke on about?"
Okay, no, fair enough. And throughout the week, I was always trying to be like, okay, what's the keyword? I said obsession last fortnight, but that was just me coming up with it on a whim.
That's all right.
But I feel like there's definitely parts of obsession in the first one, but Black Swan is where it's obsessive.
Sure, I'll give you that. But we can get into it, I guess.
What films does this include? This is The Wrestler, Black Swan, and The Whale.
Yep.
Yeah. For reference, I watched this. I went back and rewatched most of his films up to. I missed the last two before The Whale, but I rewatched most of them with this lens as well. And what I kind of found is pretty much all of his movies, I think, do deal with obsession, but I guess there's this trilogy at least. More, there's probably even compulsion, you could say. Even if the characters are
sure.
Yeah, obsession is definitely a theme in most of his stuff to an extent, but more than anything with these three, it's compulsion. I think this idea of, us being forced to do something, probably not even against our will, and it's usually because of a personal problem, right? Like a compulsion that we make for ourselves because of our character flaws and our weaknesses, and the wrestler is obviously he can't stop wrestling. Black Swan is she just needs to be perfect, and the whale is he's a really big fat guy. And those are all compulsion. He's compulsively eating. He can't none of them can get out from under that. And that's a really interesting lens. I mean, I feel like out of his 10 movies, and 8 or 9 of them could all be part of this trilogy.
Yes, I agree. I think for me, obsession needs to be a little bit, I don't know, almost self-driven. I feel like in these movies, it's almost externally driven. And I think compulsion is a better term for it. I don't think the wrestler is obsessed with wrestling. I don't think he really likes it that much.
Not obsessed with wrestling. He's obsessed with the adoration, and
maybe.
Yeah. I don't know. I genuinely, I'm not that smart.
No, and I'm only giving.
Thank you for
because we're trying to justify this as a
100%.
trilogy.
I was really keen to hear Conan's explanation of what exactly is Randy's. I can see it from the wrestling point of view as a wrestling fan, and someone who's won multiple championship belts throughout my life. Is I remember when this movie came out, being okay, cool, they're finally telling this story of these people that plague the industry almost. It is a real problem. Wrestlers can't get away from it, and it's something that it is an art form. So Darren Aronofsky, he described it in a thing that I watched where he says it's really interesting that ballet is has always been viewed as a really high art form. You know, it's classy, and it's maintained its thing, and people. He's like, it's kind of weird the way they actually dance, but we treat it as like such a regard. And he's like, but wrestling is the lowest art form. He's like, people don't even consider it art. And he's like, they're on polar opposites, but he's like, but it's both performers using their bodies to like tell stories, and they're damaging their bodies. Like, you know, they're sacrificing their bodies for like the applause, for the you know, the cheer of the crowd and everything like that. And wrestlers, unlike other athletes or anything like that, there's no off season in wrestling. So they have to give up their lives. They're traveling every week of the year basically to different towns. They sacrifice relationships. You know, a lot of them are famously not there in their children's lives or their partners' lives. And it breaks down their bodies. And wrestling has a really weird thing where they're independent contractors. Like, they don't have health insurance for themselves. It's a really weird contracty thing that's always been brought up, and wrestlers have tried to fight for unions in wrestling, but they're independent contractors at the end of the day. So once their bodies had enough and the company can't make more money off them, they're kicked to the curb and they're broken down. They can't do anything, and they've never learned anything else. And it's it's told perfectly in this movie, I feel like.
Yeah, the industry's plagued with issues. Like, I think I'd agree though with Griner. Like, it's not, obsession is not the main focus. Like, sorry, Luke, but I just don't.
No,
I don't
get
think
it. I'm with you. I'm with you.
Like, I think actually in his first two movies, Pi and Requiem, like, if you want to do obsession, those would be the two movies to talk about. And then even like, you could find a third one in there, but those two are definitely
one. I think.
Yeah, like Black Swan does have a lot of elements of obsession, but even that almost feels like there's some sort of, it's a compulsion more than anything, because she's obsessed with being perfect, but she's like the compulsion of dancing, which is created by, you know, her weird family and blah blah blah, is what's driving her. But yeah, I think that's what I feel the most with this trilogy is like, yeah. Which, to your point, Grunder, is like, it's less of an active pursuit. It's more of the character flaw that's gotten to a point where someone can't escape it.
Yes. And there's no escape. It's the only thing they can do is wrestle. The only thing they can do is dance. The only thing they can do is eat. Like,
and that's a really like powerful. There's all really powerful themes and really powerful stories in their own way dealing with that. But
the Compulsion Trilogy.
That's what I'm happy with.
I'm all over now. I'm on board.
We could have also done the Kabbalah trilogy, which is Pi, the Fountain, and Noah. So I'm keen to come back and do another Darren Aronofsky trilogy.
Three worst movies.
Whoa! Oh man,
You're a big defender of Noah, aren't you, Conan?
I'm a defender of watching his. This has been such a joy rewatching his movies. Darren Aronofsky might be one of my favorite. Like, would be one of my favorite directors. Top 5, I would say. I think he's great. Noah, I think, is criminally underrated, and The Fountain is beautiful. Like, The Fountain is truly amazing, and they just get so much shit, and they don't deserve it.
And Griner, had you watched any of these films?
I'd seen Black Swan, and I'd seen Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah,
I think I've seen Pi. I've seen a few Aronofsky movies. You kind of know what to expect coming in a little bit. Like, I'm not going to have a rip-roaring 2 hours of laughter and good times.
No, once you've seen Requiem, you're changed, aren't you?
That's right.
Some depression.
Right. All right, before we get into the trilogy, let's go through some stats. Stats. The Wrestler, released in 2008, had a budget of $6 million. $6 million. Made $44 million at the box office worldwide, and had a Metacritic score of 80.
Hey.
Black Swan, released in 2010, had a budget of $13 million, which seems absurd. It made $329 million at the box office.
Insane.
I know. And a critical reception of 79 on Metacritic. The Whale, $10 million budget, came out in 2022 and had a box office of $57 million. Still, I'd still arguably in the height of COVID. I think there was some streaming stuff around that one not long after it came out from memory too.
It was very quick to streaming.
Yeah, and Metacritic score of 60. And definitely a movie. I mean, all three. The Wrestler is probably the ugly duckling, but the other two definitely had a lot of Oscar buzz and award season buzz. The Wrestler I don't remember at all.
The Wrestler famously got snubbed at the
Yeah.
Oscars for
So
Best Actor.
Mickey Rourke had a lot of buzz. The movie didn't have any buzz besides him, but it was like the Mickey Rourke story. And I agree, it's absolutely criminal what happened to.
But he won awards. Like he won a BAFTA as Best Actor for that year, and something else is it Golden Globe? He won Golden Globe for Best Actor.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, and he should have won the Oscar over Sean Penn.
Yeah,
no one remembers Milk.
Nobody talks about Milk.
No one really likes Sean Penn. No one likes Mickey Rourke either, but this performance is like something else.
Let's get into it. A faded professional wrestler must retire, but finds his quest for a new life outside the ring a dispiriting struggle.
Is there anything more human than that? Than giving up our physical machismo in the pursuit of a normal life and realizing can't do it? I wrote my year 11 speech on this movie, and I still remember.
Really?
I still watching it again. I'm like, this. It's probably in my top 10 movies of all time. And it is just one of those movies that I think truly changed me. Like, try not to sound too wanky, but like just made a really real impression on me. Really was just kind of like put into like understanding all these things you could do with film techniques. Like, you can putting a camera right up next to someone and just following them as they go creates a real intimacy with that person. And like writing the speech, I had to try to unpack and be like, I remember vividly going through and being like, my teachers would be like, you haven't talked about film techniques enough. And I'm like, but I'm talking about the dialogue. And they're like, yeah, use techniques, talk about framing, angles, stuff like this. And I had to really try to like figure out. So it really helped me kind of learn that and sort of discover a lot of that and how films use this language to tell a story.
Did you watch it multiple times for your speech?
I assume I rewatched it. I wasn't like 5-6 times, but like I'd seen it once or twice, and I rewatched it for the speech. Definitely.
Yeah. Rewatched those the strip club scenes a few times too, didn't you?
I rewatched that, and then I was like, I better rewatch Requiem for a Dream.
Marissa Tomei's boobs again.
But then I was like, what about Ass to Ass again? Well, maybe I should watch this just in case. So I put in Requiem and gave that. Anyway,
the last 15 minutes of Requiem for a Dream for a cleanser.
I was like, yeah. But no, but yeah, like this movie made a big impression, and it blew me away. Then I'm watching it again. I was like, holy crap, it's pretty amazing. Luke, I know you're a big fan.
Like, I'm interested in hearing Grana's opinion because this is your first time watching it, Grana. I just want to say, like, I think I would have been 16 when this movie came out, and I feel like this was the first movie I watched where I was like, oh, I'm watching like a film, and like, where I got into my Conan phase a bit, where I was like, wow, like this is such a great film. Like it's an adult story being told, and like, it's, I feel like, it resonated more now as like an old broken down piece of me. But like back then, I remember, especially growing up, loving wrestling and seeing this happen, and the amount of wrestlers that die young and all that sort of stuff. Like it really resonated with me when I watched it for the first time. And I love everything about this movie. The score, the music, is everything's done with a purpose. And it feels, Grana, what was your opinion of The Wrestler?
Yeah, just I hadn't seen this movie before. I was very aware that it was one of Conan's favourite movies. I knew it was up there. I think it was his profile picture on Facebook for some time.
Oh, wow.
I feel like it was from memory. I don't know. Everything I knew about The Wrestler I had absorbed from contact with Conan. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. Like you say, it is. I don't know. I feel like with all of these movies, you can watch them and it's really easy to be like, oh, I see the symbolism in this. And I don't know if Aronofsky's just really obvious with some of what he does, or his movies are making me smarter or making me feel smarter. Maybe it's all three. But yeah, it's a great movie. I really, really enjoyed this movie a lot. Like you say, like that opening scene where it's just following him around over the shoulder. Like you don't see his face for the first few minutes. It's really interesting. Just you're kind of intimately involved with him, but you don't even really know what he looks like. And I like even the front cut, like the poster and the cover that I had seen, like you don't really see his face. He's got the hair over his face. So like, I don't even know what he looks like in this movie. And then, just seeing him in all his beat up glory. It's great.
Were you a big wrestling fan at all, Grana? Like, did you have any connection with the world before this? Or?
No, not at all. Not at all. And definitely saw it as a low art form. I think in recent years I've come to respect it a lot because some podcasts I listen to are really, really into it and they talk about it a lot. And so I've absorbed a lot of wrestling terminology and stuff by osmosis. And I have a lot more respect for it, to be honest. But yeah, and so I guess watching it today, I had a lot of respect for it. I was surprised how much time I had to spend explaining to my wife that, yes, it is like all scripted, and that's why they're talking about the moves before they do them, but they're also putting their bodies on the line literally the whole time. Like, I don't know, it was funny.
It's like,
That's the thing. Like, it's wrestling. It's an interesting, weird, like sport thing where it's like, a sport soap opera where there's nothing really anything like it. It's hard to describe, to like be super engaged to the point like I'm cheering for them to have written the story this way for this person to win this match and for it to have like an emotional impact where I'm like, oh my god, he did it, like he's the world champion. And but to have such like impact, it's such a weird thing, and obviously back in the day it was all about like the vision of it being real. They didn't want anybody to know it was fake. Like, it's called keeping kayfabe, where it's like
kayfabe.
Yeah,
like we need to keep this up. Like Undertaker, like never did interviews. Like he's like, no, I am a dead man. Like I am an Undertaker, and I can't do all this stuff. And people would get interviewed. Hulk Hogan famously got interviewed. What's his name? By this guy that he'd munch on Law and Order SVU. I forget the actor's name.
Sorry. I've seen that interview. It's
interviewed him on a talk show, and basically him egging him on, being like, "Oh, I know it's fake." Hulk Hogan put him in a headlock and choked him out to the point he dropped on the ground and got concussion and sued him. Like, wrestlers famously just would beat up people, being like, "Oh, you fake. I'm a tough guy. Like, I'm going to do this." And what I love about this movie is it paints this wrestling in this light that he's done all this. He's like, this big muscly guy. He does take all these injuries. He's got staples in him. He's like beaten down. And like his little dweeb of a boss that's like jerking off in his office talks down to him as like isn't that when you sit on dudes' faces? Like, or the price of tights gone up? And he can talk.
Like the first time you see him, he's like on top of a ladder, looking down on him. Like, and there's ladder matches in wrestling as well. Like, it's all very well done.
Yeah. And it's done so well in this. I love it.
Yeah, like I want to talk about that technique. Like the technique you say, where you can kind of see what Aronofsky's doing sometimes. Like, it's in all of his movies. Like, he's a director who sort of wears his style on his sleeve in a lot of ways. Like, I'm gonna try hard not to keep talking about all the movies that I watch, but like Requiem for a Dream does it a lot, where it's really like bombastic with all the different choices and the montages and stuff. But it's like in this world, like there is a lot of there's a great scene where he's jogging past through his his trailer park home.
Yeah.
And he kind of collapses and like the camera just zooms right out. And there's this shot of just him in the middle. And it's like, oh yeah, he's alone. There's no one else around him. And on one hand, you're like, that's an obvious shot. But on the other hand, it's like, it's kind of good basic film language. And I think, we're at a point, we've had this podcast for a while. We've talked about this stuff for a long time. So you start to learn to read it a bit. But Aronofsky's like, he doesn't try to really hide any of the stuff he does. He's not always like, he's okay with having a bit of flash and like, there's a lot of choices in this. Like the lights are really they're trying to create the image and the appeal of what it was in the 80s, but like it makes it almost feel like you're in this weird ethereal, like euphoric space. Like when he's wrestling and the lights are up and on him, it's like he's an angel.
Yeah.
And there are shots where it's like these guys are perceiving themselves as gods. Like,
but everything else is dreary and just like it's filmed like a documentary. It looks like a documentary, like you're actually following this guy through his life.
And that's there's the great kind of collision between like the grounded realism of just because all the lighting in this movie is natural. I think I was trying to look at besides the parts in the ring, everything feels natural. Like there is no one's painted in like a bright vivid thing. Everyone's always kind of a bit dim and grey, and because it's in Pennsylvania, so it's all kind of dreary.
There's shots of him in the car. You can't see shit.
Yeah,
like, you can't see his face. It's just him sitting in the car with a can of energy drink, like drinking it. And it's like,
and they've just put a camera in there and like, this is life. We're filming it now.
Yeah.
There's
And
that
then
scene,
like
the scene at the start where he can't get into his apartment. It's like it's actually very hard to understand. Like he's crawling in somewhere now. Is he? Oh, he's in the back of his van. Is that where he? Right. Okay. Like it's really not clear, but yeah, natural lighting. Like
and that makes you feel like, yeah, what's going on? What am I doing? And he's feeling the exact same way. It's like, oh, it's great. Yeah, great communication. But like, there was something. I've lost my train of thought because I'm so into it.
I'll just jump in here and just be like, I love that there's like the whole opening montage thing. You know, you can't get in because bloody Lenny's locked him out because he hasn't paid rent and all this sort of stuff. And I just love this idea that like he can't pay to like stay in this caravan park, and he's like sleeping in his car when he's all battered and bruised. But he'll go to a hair salon and get his hair professionally done.
Yes.
Get professionally tanned. Leave extra tips for his stripper, or he's like, no, keep the change. Like everything, and obviously drugs, steroids, everything to make him look like better. But then he's actual just living. He's like, oh, I'm not paying rent. Everything else comes first, but this is second. So
it's great later on. You see him have to do that again, but he does the budget version, right? Like he's dyeing his own hair and like
rubbing on the tan and
There's that amazing part with that as well. It's got that rock song playing, and it's like this is him getting ready for this big fight, and it's just that great like contrast of. It's like, yeah, he's getting ready. He's a wrestler. It's like he's spraying tan on himself because he can't afford tan. He can't afford to get a real tan. Like this is just in one way, it's like the saddest kind of thing. But because we spend so much time with him, we're like, no, this is great. He is about to wrestle, and this is what he has to do. This is what his compulsion is. This is all of his identity. Like, it's such a perfect kind of encapsulation of like that character's drama of like, how do you change who you are, and are we more than our job? Like, how do we define ourselves? And when we do define ourselves with something, how do we change that? How can we ever break out from that or not? Like picking wrestling as the lens to tell that story is like, like a 10 out of 10, the perfect genre for that. It's amazing to be like this human story, but also this critique of this, I don't know, of athleticism, of sport, of growing old is told through wrestling, which is just this fascinating, like, sports / sports entertainment, as I think they call it now.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's fake, but it's real. And that's just such a weird contradiction in terms, but that is how it is, where there is a real physicality and a real violence to it, and a real, almost like a real sort of reckless, almost like suicide nature, where you're like, I'm just going to inject my body with poison and die in a blaze of glory.
Yeah. And
it's just it's such a strange art form that that's kind of got this incredible historic root as well. I don't know, it's just, this movie's got like that perfect encapsulation of genre and like human drama narrative that I think on one hand feels so simple and obvious, but it's also so nuanced.
That's like what I love about this, and like this movie itself does it in two different ways, telling the story obviously with Marissa Tomei, Cassidy as a stripper, like basically the exact same path that they're on, and they're having these same moments and stuff like that. Obviously her being more like, an older stripper, doesn't feel like people are paying attention to her. But what I didn't catch in the first time I watched it, like years and years ago when I was younger, and like watching it now, like him constantly being like you're Randy, like Robin, I feel like is the character for him, and she does it too, where she's like, you're Pam, because she's like, I'm in my real life now. This is me. Cassidy's like a performance I'm putting on out there. He, no matter what, he's being told by the doctor, like, you had a heart attack and a major surgery and you can't do this ever again. But he won't be called Mr. Ranziski. He's like, no, Randy. He's like, call me Randy. Don't call me Robin. Like, I am not Robin. He's like, I don't want to be Robin. And it's like that in real life. Like, Hulk Hogan doesn't want to be called Terry. Like, he's Hulk Hogan. The Rock is Dwayne Johnson, but he's The Rock.
Well, he's Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Yeah. Stone Cold Steve Austin. His real name's not Steve Austin. But they become, it's Steve Williams.
Is his real name Stone?
Stephen Williams, yes, Mr. Cold. They become these characters, and it's their identity completely, and they can't escape from it. And for a lot of these wrestlers in the 80s especially, I feel like it's getting better in these days, but they're like the bad type of famous where people know them, but they're not rich. Like it's like people recognize him, and like that whole deli scene is super intense.
Well, there's that fan meetup too, right, where he goes and it's just this sad little bunch of tables and chairs and all these sad old men and nobody's there to see them and
missing limbs, catheters running.
They're all in bad shape too.
And nobody's there. Yep.
Yeah. So many amazing moments like that little profound and wordless moments that say so much. There's that scene really stands out. There's the scene that like I got so teary and where he goes back to the pier and he's reconnecting with his daughter.
Yeah.
And just like even in that, they're at this abandoned cold pier and they kick the door into this ballroom and it's like this incredibly like beautiful, lavish, old gala hall.
Yeah.
But it's got to be knocked down. And it's like, that's again a perfect sort of metaphor of like this once beautiful grand thing that probably had so much joy and brought so much joy and is going to get destroyed. And so it's just this great, like the subtext there is really great. And then just watching them like reconnect and like when he takes their hand, like I just take my glasses off for a moment because like, holy crap, as a father now, I'm just like, it just captures the pain and like the yearning on his end of like a guy who's a victim of his own circumstance,
and then he destroys it. He self-destructs. He gets rejected because he becomes too Robin to walk into like Cassidy's workplace and try and, push this on her when she's not at that point. And he gets rejected, turns into an arsehole straight away, and then self-destructs. And Rex is like, goes and has a fireman party and which comes back in Black Swan, like, goes out, parties at night, oversleeps after like a sexual encounter, and it like leads to like a big spiral basically.
The overnight sexual encounter trilogy.
Exactly. I was waiting for it in The Whale, but it didn't happen. I was come on.
It was at the opening of The Whale, right?
Come on, missionary.
It's literally the opening scene of The Whale.
That's
know.
True.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's exactly, I wonder if Aronofsky's got some hang-ups there. He had a bad night in the club once.
Yeah. All right, tell me, I don't know much about Mickey Rourke. How much of this is Mickey Rourke's life too, right? Like, because as an actor, what was he big at some point and he's no longer big? I don't really know him. I just know he turns up in things like, oh, that's Mickey Rourke. But
he was a boxer as well. So he was a boxer. That's why he looks beat up. He's had a lot of facial reconstruction.
Yeah.
But like kind of not a big actor. I don't feel like he was ever a big actor, but I don't know too much of his film stuff. I know he had a boxing career and disappeared for a long time and wasn't in much, which is why like the budget of this movie was $6 million. Originally, the wrestler was Nicolas Cage.
That's what they wanted.
But they were like, he looks too healthy and good. Like, we need someone who looks like this character, and it's one of the best castings ever. It's like perfectly cast. It feels super believable.
Yeah, I forgot the salary was so short. I think he only made like the budget. So I think he only made like $50,000 on it, which is like just not a lot of money for a. Anyway, but. Was a very small release, like funding was hard to come by, yada yada. Tarantino does this a lot. A lot of the great filmmakers that I think we like do this. They take actors and they bring that metatextual level of, you recognize him and you bring that. And this is this was the narrative around this movie. All of this movie was like, even the DVD I've got, the big line on the front is like, witness the resurrection of Mickey Rourke. And this is what it was. It was like, this is his. I remember seeing. Maybe I'm imagining this, but I'm sure I remember seeing like, this is his Tarantino moment, meaning. This is where his career starts again. This is where he gets his, his Pulp Fiction for Travolta, or this is like his Robert Downey Jr. year, like that moment where he gets to come back and be like, oh, he is a good actor again. He just needed that one good role. But there is a lot of his own life. He was a boxer. I think I'm looking here. So he was a professional boxer in 91, retired in 94. He did have a pretty decent acting career in the 80s. Like, he was never a huge celebrity, but, he did a lot of, like, he was a really handsome guy. You look at him in the 80s, like, he's very...
He was popular, like, as a heartthrob.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he was a really good-looking, like, macho dude. But then he did boxing, got knocked around a bit, got a lot of plastic surgery, which made him look a bit weird. And yeah, like really then just sort of did bit parts. And then he had Sin City, which kind of rebooted him for our generation, or like brought him back into the consciousness. And then this came along where he was like nominated for an Oscar, should have won.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but then again, much like a wrestler, he can't help himself, and he just kind of can't do anything with this.
Expendables.
Iron Man 2.
Iron Man 2.
Iron Man 2. How could I forget Iron Man 2? Yeah.
But like Iron Man 2 and Expendables in the same year, and then it's like looking at his IMDb. Passion Play, Immortals, The Courier, Black November. And the Metascores are like 4.5, 4.5, 5.3. Like he just does directed VOD streaming things now.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what I've gathered. Part of the reason they didn't want him for this movie was because he was notoriously unreliable. He was difficult to work with because of his like a history of, you know, drug and alcohol abuse and stuff. So it is, I think, like, I just feel like he's playing himself in this movie. I don't know for sure, but I reckon there is just a lot of him. He's just like, yep, I am this person.
Easiest role of his life. It's like, follow me to my trailer park.
This is where I live. Yeah.
It really was just a documentary.
You like my nest?
That's
That's pretty cool, eh?
Yeah. Just following him at the deli.
That's why he took 50,000, because he's like, I didn't do any work. Why are you paying me?
Like, hell yeah, 50,000.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the thing. Like, he self-destructs. It's kind of a heartbreaking end, but like, yeah, it's interesting how it goes with Marissa Tomei's whole arc. There's little things like, that's the thing. It's all about Randy for him. Like, I love that. You know, he's got an action figure of himself on his dashboard. Like, he calls out to the kids to come play video games, which I don't know why that really got to me when I was young. Watching that scene, I just remember him being like, "You want to come play Nintendo?" Like, it's like so pathetic. Like, because he's like, "Look, I'm in this video game," basically. Like, look, the Ram Jam. And like the conversation where the kid's like trying to tell him about Call of Duty and he can't hear him. It's like so real. Like, I feel like I've been on that. I feel like I've been on both sides of that conversation now that I'm like in my 30s, and I'm like, what are the kids flossing? What do you mean? Like,
do you like Among Us? What is that?
What? But yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
I appreciate that this movie, more than the others, there was some fun in this movie. I guess like some lighter moments. I guess like that wrestling match where he's I don't know what it was, but there's barbed wire, there's a stapler, there's like it's fun.
That's not the light-hearted moment. What are you talking
about? You reckon? I reckon that was pretty funny. It was brutal. It was brutal, but it was kind of funny too.
Yeah,
it's pretty great because the wrestler before he's just like, "Oh, are you okay with?" Like, I don't make me work my knees too much; they don't work. He's like, "Are you all right with the staple gun?" I was like, "Huh?" And they're just starts doing like blood and glass everywhere. Yeah. It's like, crap, what's happened?
Yeah. And then like he uses the prosthetic leg as well. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And then there's that moment where he's in the deli. I used to work in a deli, and he's smashing it. He's doing so well. He threw that egg salad at that guy. I wasn't sure about that. I was like, that's a disaster waiting to happen. But
that guy wasn't too sure about it either.
No, but everything else, I'm like, man, this guy's killing it.
Yeah.
Fun fact: that scene is real. Like that was actual customers.
It was at a deli. They didn't know who it was. He's just doing it, interacting.
And so he is actually killer, and that's why the guy is just kind of like, because that's how people act, right? When in confrontation or conflict, they never get like angry. They just kind of get awkward and quiet, and that's why he's like, that's why he catches it. Where it's like he just doesn't know what to do. He's kind of scared,
which is great.
Yeah, perfect.
And then
what did you got?
He punches the bloody slice off. It's like, oh god.
Yeah, that scene is really hard to watch. Like the guy's just like, he looked just like him but older. It's like, that's it.
Starts yelling at his boss. He's like flicking blood on people. It's like, oh my god, it's a scene.
Yeah, can you imagine? What did you guys think of the ending? Like, what do you think happened? And I don't know.
I think he did.
I think I think he's dead. I think it's...
the Ramsey.
I would like to say that all three of these movies end the same way. Does Aronofsky have a problem with giving us a definitive ending? Like, do you think that's a problem with his filmmaking?
I'm asking the questions.
I feel like they're all pretty definitive.
I do too. I think they are. I don't have a huge... I think it can be a cop-out to do an ending like that, right? It's easier to fade to black than it is to I don't know, make a scene that's effective of him dying. Like, how do you do it? Do you cut to a funeral? Do you have the EMTs rush in but unable to revive him? And I don't know if that's worse ending anyway. It's hard to know.
Yeah, I'm on the other side of it. I think I think it's a cop out to try to show that and be like, he died, and look at what a significant moment this is. Like because how do you do that without being heavy-handed? But
Because wrestlers have died in the ring, and they've pushed him off and brought out the next match. Like Owen Hart died in that ring, and they pushed him out to the back and kept going with the pay-per-view. And
crazy,
maybe that's a brutal thing to do in the movie. Have it be like this thing, and then it's like, all right, well, the next match will be this, and it's like he's forgotten about. But I like the ending. I love the ending the way it is, and I think I wouldn't want to see anymore.
Filmic choices aside, though, I think this movie is 110%. Sorry, that's not true. There's like 2 scenes that aren't his point of view, but pretty much the entire movie is literally hugging his shoulder, or in his van, or in his bed with him. Like it's entirely his story. There's only like those couple of shots that are from
with Cassidy.
with her on her own. Everything else is you are there with the Ram, like right in his space. It's all it's from his perspective. There's that scene where he goes into the deli for the first time and he hears the chanting of the music and the crowd, and he's like, and he just walks through the
curtain.
Yeah, and it's that great, like, we're in his head, like we are in his psychology. So I think the ending's perfect because it's like this is where I think it's pretty obvious. He dies. They keep saying if you wrestle, you will die.
Yes,
but like this is his ending. Like his final moment is him doing the Ram Jam, essentially like ascending to heaven. The way it's shot is like he's flying upwards.
Yeah,
like he's going out on his terms. And so I think it'd be weird to show that and be like, step away from his reality and be like, oh, now we're watching just this guy die. Like, yeah, I think for the story being told, like, which is his journey, it's the perfect choice because it's like his death, but also his life. Like, his new life where he goes to wrestling heaven.
Face the Macho Man, Randy Savage.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything more you want to say?
Not like the ending?
No, I did like the ending in this one. I was fine with the ending in this one. It just becomes obvious when there's 3 films that have very similar endings.
Yes.
Is that a problem? Because they are kind of unresolved endings to some degree. And I think that can be a cop-out a little bit.
I would agree, but not in the type of story he's telling. Like,
definitely not for this movie. I guess we'll get to the others and we can talk about them, but...
Yeah.
All right, next movie, Black Swan.
Sorry. One last thing. I talked about the music earlier, like composed by Clint Mansell, who's my boy. I love Clint Mansell.
Yeah. Top 3 composers.
What I love that they did in the whole theme of Mickey Rourke and as this character in like the 80s and stuff like that is they have Slash play the music, so it has like that guitar, like electric guitar, even though sometimes it's just ding, 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 like really slow, but the fact that they've Slash doing that, and then the credit song is sung like written by Bruce Springsteen, sung by Bruce Springsteen. It's like a perfect combination of like this is that era of these like rock stars from this time, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, again, like the glam metal, the glam rock, glam metal with the quiet sort of like that ending song is like a quiet acoustic song. Yeah, it's a really good choice.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay. There we go. Black Swan, 2010. Nina is a talented but unstable ballerina on the verge of stardom, pushed to the breaking point by her artistic director and a seductive rival. Nina's grip on reality slips, plunging her into a waking nightmare.
I would like to start this with a question. Why do you guys think this movie made $300 million? That's insanity.
I know. It's a good question.
People like high art more than low art. The wrestlers deserve $300 million. You've got Natalie Portman.
Yeah, I think she was a bit of a star at the time, right? Like, and I remember the reporting around this movie was like, oh, she put her body on the line for this movie. She learned how to do ballet. She was, cracking her ankles or whatever they do.
Made sweet love to Mila Kunis.
Yep.
So it's I don't know, and I feel like just it's story, it's the imagery of it. I remember the poster with like the crack, like she's like made of porcelain and it's like a black crack going across her face. I think it's just more marketable, but I don't know, it's weird to think that because it's a very intense movie and it's a pretty scary. It's like it's a horror in a lot of parts of this film that I remember being terrified of when I first watched this movie. I was like, oh god, I wasn't expecting jump scares in this film, but yeah.
it's so weird to me. I think now, like a movie comes out about a ballerina being like, this has got like $13 million budget, is going to make 300 million. Like it's just an artifact of a different time. If a movie came out now about like a psycho thriller about a ballerina, it'd be like, probably maybe Netflix's top 10 day one. But like, I don't even know if it would get a cinematic run. It would, and it just, I remember this being like a phenomenon in the sense that everybody had seen it. Like it wasn't, people weren't like, holy crap, Black Swan's finally out, but just everybody had seen this movie. And everybody was talking, I think in a big part because they're like, Natalie Portman gets it on with another girl. And so it was kind of like that. Like, I do think it had that really clever marketability of like, it's a ballet movie for girls and they could take their boyfriends because they might see her get some loving. And like, that was just kind of like a controversial talking point. I remember people like, holy crap, this is the movie where she does, she goes extreme and it must be pretty crazy, yada, yada, yada. And like, I don't remember the talk about a physical body, but that makes sense. That was a big talking point as well.
But I think as much as it didn't do well at the box office, The Wrestler, but I feel like The Wrestler got a lot of talk. Like there was a lot of Oscar buzz around it. I feel like myself, and I know Conan, you probably knew, and like people in the industry knew, but like I think for a different generation, The Wrestler and that buzz around that movie I was like, oh, okay, Aronofsky, who's this guy? Okay, like obviously Requiem for a Dream was huge and all that sort of stuff, but I feel like these movies between Requiem and The Wrestler hadn't done big at the box office or anything like that. And I feel like a lot of success when The Black Swan came out only 2 years later, it was like, oh, this is like the female version of The Wrestler. This is like The Wrestler but ballet with Natalie Portman.
And that's what I wonder, how much of it was that, because I can't remember and I don't have anything to, back it up or prove it, but I wonder if that was part of the
Bebo page and see what the talk was back then.
That's right. Because that's the vibe I get, right? Like this, I wonder if this movie benefited from the after the fact success of The Wrestler and people being like, oh yeah, it's the next sort of version from this guy made this cool movie. This was a bit of a thriller.
I think I remembered Aronofsky's star definitely being on the rise at the time, right? Like, yeah, for sure.
Which is crazy because then he makes Noah.
Yeah,
which for me,
I remember that having buzz too, and
people being really hyped for it. I remember being like, "Oh my god, Noah, by the guy that made The Wrestler and Black Swan," and being like, "What is this movie?"
And it lived up to every expectation. It exceeded it. Justice for Noah. Black Swan's really good. I had seen this when it came out. I've only seen it once, and I think in my mind I've always had a slight issue with it because I'm like, The Wrestler should be loved more than Black Swan, but everybody loves Black Swan more. It's like truly when I watch it, I'm like, Black Swan, that's like the lesser man's version of The Wrestler. But they're very different movies. Like
it's the mainstream version of The Wrestler.
Like kind of. That's just how my juvenile brain processed it.
The high art version.
But to your point, Luke, like this is actually a horror movie, which I kind of forgot about as well. Like there's a lot of jump scares, a lot of really like just a lot of great, disturbing imagery and creepy moments. But like again, a really clever combination of plot and sort of theme, because like the Black Swan ballet is literally like this girl having to choose between lives, and she has to die in the end. I'm like, oh, that's what's the movie is like. The plot of Black Swan is they use Black Swan as the artifice to tell it. That's really clever. It's very simple, but it's also done really well, I think, in this.
Yeah, the body horror is pretty good in this movie. I really enjoy it. Like even there's the little moments like where she's picking at her fingernail, and everybody's done that where it kind of like unravels up your arm a bit, and it's like, oh, stop pulling on that, but she just keeps going. And then obviously there's like the moment where her legs snap backwards.
Yeah,
she turns like
toenail,
into a bird, the toenail, and then the rash on the back and pulling out feathers and
so messed up.
Yeah,
I think I feel like this movie sort of, as what probably The Wrestler did for people, but like for me it was like, oh, okay, ballet's like legit. Like these people like put their bodies and like through shit. Funny comparison, in wrestling there's a term that like commentators use all the time, like, this ain't ballet, like this is wrestling, and it's kind of interesting that there's this like juxtaposition of them where it is very similar though. And like just with her feet and dancing on their toes and like seeing her toenail and like that. And obviously, it's a world that breeds like eating disorders and all this stuff. Like the smile she gets
too, like
yes,
exactly. Like the smile she gets when the person who doesn't say it as a compliment, but he's like, "Oh, you've lost weight," because she's like, "We'll have to redo this shirt." And Natalie Portman just has this like little girl smile where she's like, "Ah, yeah, like that's a compliment. Like, thank you. I did lose weight by not eating and vomiting and like all this stuff." It's yeah.
Natalie Portman is I kind of forgot how like good of an actress she could be, or she is, I guess. I'm like in her watching her in this, like she is, because this is all her. This is it's like similar to the wrestler. It's just all about her. Really, it's all from her perspective. It's like she's a tour de force. Like she's really, really both vulnerable, but also like there's just enough of there's enough Black Swan in her that the whole time you're like, when she gonna snap and cut someone's throat? It's coming, and or like when's it just the last straw gonna happen? She just has a really really magnetic presence where she's vulnerable and she's very small in this, and she's like got the juvenile voice, and so the whole time you're kind of like, I just want you to be okay.
Yeah.
But then you're like, there's just an edge to it all, and like I don't know, she captures it really well. Like
and I think across the board, like the performance is really good and the casting's really good too. Like Mila Kunis, I quite like her in this movie. Like I think she's really good, and I think she's well cast, because I think looking at her, she's like, oh, she's that 70s show chick. Like she's kind of dumb and whatever, like whatever preconceived notions you have of her. And then she's kind of the Black Swan to Natalie Portman. Like some really good scenes in there. Yeah. Vincent Castle is creepy and gross, and
my
French.
first
He's French, isn't he?
That's the worst part. Yeah, this is my first exposure to him. Like I'd never seen him before, and I don't remember him from Oceans. Like when we rewatched it, I was like, oh wow, he's there. But this is the first memory I have of him, and he comes up. I'm like, oh, this guy is like, he's creepy. He's a bit of a monster.
Seems like a ballet instructor. Like he really like believable though. Like it is like, oh yeah, okay, cool. They casted this guy as a ballet instructor. Like that's the thing. And I feel like back around this time, 2010, I feel like Mila Kunis's like name was big, like a lot bigger than it is now or before that. Like she had Forgetting Sarah Marshall, she was in. I feel like she was in all the rom-coms that were coming out and stuff like that. I feel like she was a big star and like known as Justin like the Timberlake young film. Hollywood star coming through. Which is a good comparison for her character in the movie as well. It's like the younger version of her, that's like more fun or whatever. But
because she's got like that kind of like street energy, like coming from a sitcom. She's got the sort of raspier voice. Like she feels like she could come from. They say she's flown from San Francisco. Yeah, like she's got a bit of an edge, and it's like, this is the Black Swan to this other one.
And like Aronofsky again is like wearing his his filmmaking on his sleeve. Like she's got the black wings tattooed on her back. She wears black all the time. She's obviously like darker skinned and a bit more exotic than Natalie Portman. Like it's all super obvious, but it's I don't know, it's fun watching that and seeing that all play out.
There's like you don't notice it, I think, unless you kind of like I never noticed it back when I was watching it, and I can't imagine your average film goer is like, well, the costume here is so interesting, like look at that. But like Natalie Portman starts off, everything she wears is white, and then she starts to have like
really light pink
exactly, very bright and stuff, and then she starts to get like a grey singlet and some black socks, and before you know it, she's all in dark, and it's like, oh yes, it's on the nose, but it's just so effective at communicating the idea without needing to make it, like, I don't know, insultingly obvious.
That's the thing. It's on the nose, but in a way that fits. Like it's not like she's putting on a black coat and then like ruffling her hair up like emo Parker and be like, dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, then she's like, oh yeah, I like this version of me. It's I don't know if it's film school for dummies, where it's like people like me back then could watch it and be like, oh, she's doing the Leo meme, pointing at the screen, be like, oh, she's changing. Look at the wings on her back. Oh, look at that. She's But it's fine. I don't think it's on the nose, but I don't think it's punching you in the face.
No, I think you're right. Yeah.
And then like there's a few of those, like the mirrors. Just every scene really has a mirror in it in some way. Like she's always looking at herself through mirrors. She's always got mirrors in the room around her.
Yeah.
And similarly, that becomes, after a while, you just always see that, and you're like, I'm always watching 10 versions of her. And when he starts to have those scenes where the reflections do something different to her, what she's doing, then you're always looking in like, man, there's mirrors in everything. Yeah. But it's like,
even the paintings of her and the pictures of her too, though. Like,
it's not subtle, but it's like it just communicates it well. And it becomes a really good, like, engaging way to watch, because you're always looking for little tricks. You're always looking for the is one of them not moving properly, or her eyes weird?
Yeah, but that's the thing. I think something they do really well in this is like that paranoia feeling. Like, when he announces her, and it's like, it'll be like all she hears is like the one person laughing in a conversation in a room full of people, and she's like, gets paranoid. She's like, are they laughing at me? Are they trying to take my spot? Like, what's going on? Like, are they talking about me? And it seems like that. It puts you in that paranoid thing of like, oh, they're out to get her. When obviously it's from her perspective. She's her own worst enemy throughout the whole film, sort of thing. But it's very well done.
The constant intimate camera, and like the sound design and stuff. It's really good at that as well.
You like wings fluttering all the time.
Yeah. I'd forgotten about the relationship with her mother, and just how creepy that is.
It's good though, because it starts off and she seems like she's really supportive, and it's like, oh, she needs someone in her corner. This is good, but it turns sinister over the course of the movie. It's great.
Yeah, there's the scene where she's like, she gets the frosting off the cake and holds it out to her on her finger, and like Natalie Portman licks it off her finger. I'm like, that is so weird. That is so creepy.
Yeah,
and so it's like this little offhand thing, but like that's just what disturbed me the most. I'm like, this relationship is messed up.
Yeah.
But again, like that great idea of what success and fame has driven, like has sort of driven her mother insane to live so vicariously through Nina. It's like, she's, because like, I don't know, what do you guys think of the whole psychosexual reading, right? Like is this more about obsession and compulsion with being perfect, or is it just is like a metaphor for sexual maturity? Because she's kind of sexually repressed with her mum. Like, there's that scene where she starts,
like,
and like they talk about that explicitly, like the virgin white swan.
Yeah,
and every chance she gets to sort of be intimate is always screwed up, or like in the is done by her gross abuse
of her mum next to her in the bed.
Yeah,
like, oh my god.
And so then it's like, and then sort of when she finally becomes the black swan, like she starts bleeding. It's like, okay, so she's she's hitting puberty.
Oh shit! So that was deeper than me. I didn't figure that out.
Yeah.
Damn.
What did you guys think? Like, do you give that reading much? I don't know. What do you think about that? I guess
it's definitely dripping with it. This movie, right? Like, it's just brought up over and over again. You've got one task. Go home and play with yourself. Live a little. Like, it just over and over and over again.
My teacher told me that when I was in school, and he got fired.
Because you didn't play with yourself enough. Like,
yeah.
But I'll admit that's not the reading I had of this movie, right? Like,
but it's hard to ignore when I hear that. Like, it's kind of telling.
Yeah, but I think it's there, but it's like not the main point, I guess. I don't know. Like, I was just thinking, I'm not sure what point. I don't know what point he's trying to make with it. And if there's an issue with this movie, and I'm sure there's probably others you could raise, but like, I don't fully know what he's getting at, because she achieves perfection. That comes at a cost.
Yeah.
But the psychosexual reading of it is like, she dies when she becomes a woman, I guess.
Yeah.
And like, is that like that? I don't know. Being an adult means you start to get quote unquote dirty, and you like
sex equals bad, kind of. Is that?
Yeah.
Which I don't think is his message in this movie, right? But
no. But I don't know how to read. I don't fully know where the correlation is.
Yeah. Yeah, I get what you mean.
I mean, I don't know. Mickey Rourke has sex in that one, and then his life goes to shit.
So maybe there is a hang up here. Maybe
all three of them, it's kind of that way, right? Like,
that's true. Yeah, maybe there is something here. Aronofsky's got some weird pent up shit.
Was there any like masturbating scenes in Noah? I don't remember.
No. Like, give me 20 minutes.
Isn't everybody around? Isn't everybody around Noah masturbating, and that's why they all have to be killed, right? Like,
we need to repopulate the planet animals.
That's funny.
But yeah, intense movie, difficult to watch. Like, not as difficult as Requiem, but there's a lot of disturbing imagery where it's like, oh man, I don't like seeing that stuff. But yeah,
I think that's my problem, and it's not a problem, but there's plenty of movies like this where I've seen it once. Can I say I enjoyed it? Like, it sat with me. I thought about it for a bit afterwards. It had an effect on me. Wouldn't say I had a good time though, right? Like, it's not a movie I'm going to dig out and watch again. Requiem for a Dream is another example. Even stuff like The Passion of the Christ. Like, I'm not going to watch that movie ever again. I don't think. Like, there's heaps of movies like that are just, it's too much. Like, I've seen it once. I'm going to have that reading of it forever probably, and I don't think I need to see it again.
My original idea for this was Requiem, The Wrestler, and Black Swan. And what steered me from that? I was like, obsession. You know,
I want to lose the Will to Live trilogy.
Yeah.
But literally, what stopped me was I've watched Requiem once, and I really don't want to watch it again. Like, it's a difficult watch, and I think most people think that way about it.
I rewatched it though; it goes hard. It's a good film.
Yeah,
it's got some great scenes.
It's got a banger theme. The score is awesome.
Oh yeah, Lux Eternius.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, that's true. This isn't The Wrestler is the kind of movie I can go back into, even though it's very sad and very despairing. Yeah, Black Swan original. It's not really something I'm like, man, I don't know if I'd ever want to watch Black Swan casually or like.
Have some friends who are like, hey, let's watch Black Swan. Come on, boys, let's watch Black Swan.
Yeah.
But it did very well at the box office.
Which again, I just can't. I'm such a hang up. Like, it's just a weird thing. Like, why was everybody saying Black Swan?
I know. To go back in time, and surely someone's written about this, because I remember there being lots of buzz about this movie. Like, I remember them showing some of the horror elements slightly too, and I had the impression that this movie was about a person transforming into a swan, like literally. That's the impression I had gotten from the lead up to this movie, and I'll admit I was a little disappointed when she didn't actually turn into a swan.
When's she becoming the swan? Damn it!
Stop playing with my emotions and just turn her into a swan.
That's a cool remake idea though. Just this where she becomes the Black Swan. Anyway, like, I yearn for the days. Where a fairly low budget ballet film could make this much money at the box office.
And not many films these days are made with a $6 or $13 million budget. That's insane these days.
Yeah, you're right. So, especially with someone like Natalie Portman, like big actress. Yeah,
13 millions.
That's actually an interesting point. Yeah, I should mention, like, it's interesting, like, this story leading up to this. The movie was having a lot of trouble getting financing, and so Natalie Portman was like training to do ballet all from her own pocket for years. It's like, doing it all like basically on faith, just really hoping the movie would be made. And then ended up finally getting enough backers got made, and then turns into this huge phenomenon. But like, kind of cool, yeah. You know, it's one of those projects that everybody was just passionate about and interested in.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to analyze Aronofsky's career. He made this and then went on to Noah. Like, did he undo all of his goodwill with Noah?
Well, no, because he never had goodwill, because Requiem for a Dream comes out. I don't think that actually made a lot of money, but it was a huge cult success.
And like what you said, Conan, he struggled to get funding for The Wrestler. Like, he was struggling to get financing for it. And they did get a budget eventually. After Nick Cage dropped out of 18 million, and they'd done it in 6 million, which is crazy, like way under budget. Yeah,
exactly. It's like Requiem didn't do well. The Fountain was a huge failure, had a huge problem. Like, he was going to make that in 2001. Funding fell through. He struggled for 5 years to finally get funding again, and it was just a huge commercial flop. The Wrestler comes out, makes a little bit of money. Black Swan finally gives him that. Yeah, that's like his apex. He's like, I can do anything. And then he sponsors on Noah, which I'm all for taking swings, but it's like, this guy, either doesn't want to play the game or just had a lot of misguided faith in himself. Because because then he made Mother, which was hugely divisive. So I know he's still getting checks, I guess, to make movies, but yeah, he's not like a. I don't think anyone is running to give him money.
I don't know. I feel like The Whale was a bit of a. I mean, obviously, it's got the Oscar nod. But
Noah's budget was 125 million after Black Swan, and it made 360 million.
So it did have, probably would have had some returns, but I don't know, like Tail End. I don't know, that movie is divisive. People, I don't know if any companies looks back and is like, Noah, do we want you to make that again?
Make Noah 2. Please.
I can't wait till he makes Moses and just blows you out of the water.
Yep, it should be cool.
The biblical trilogy. We'll get there one day.
Yep.
Oh, please God.
All right. Anything else you want to say about Black Swan before we move on? Winter Soldier, nice little cameo there at the bar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hardly even a cameo. He was nothing then, so it's just a role for him, right? Like
just one of his early roles.
Yep. All right. The Whale, a reclusive, morbidly obese English teacher attempts to reconnect with his estranged teenage daughter.
Talk to me, fellas. What did you think?
So I had a great time watching this movie.
You go, Gunnar.
You want me to go? I really enjoyed this movie. Where to begin though with it? I expected to find this movie a bit challenging. Not to get too personal, I'm not a small guy. Obviously, watching a dude overeat for hours is going to have some effect on me, possibly. But then I wasn't expecting this movie to have faith as such a big part of it, have religion and the church be such a big part of it as well. Yeah. So it was an interesting watch for me, but I did really, really enjoy it. Again, I think you get those, Aronofsky shows his filmmaking a bit, or I'm getting better at identifying it, one or the other. Like, there's all those good moments in here too, but I enjoyed this movie. I think Brendan Fraser was really, really good in it. As much as I love Brendan Fraser, I don't like his acting in a lot of movies. Like his acting in Scorsese movie, Killers of the Flower Moon.
Great.
Nah, could not. I thought he was
terrible.
Terrible.
Starts yelling.
I thought he was terrible in that, but I really enjoyed his performance here. I thought it was actually very good. Yeah.
I see. It's interesting. Like, out of all the movies, like, I couldn't relate to this one at all because obviously I got rock hard abs. No. So that's the thing as well. Is I remember before this movie coming out, I was super hyped on it. I was like, cool, Aronofsky doing a story on a fat dude. I'm about it. This will speak to me. like this one's going to impact me. And then I feel like the reaction to the movie, I had this image of it in my mind because obviously it was memed to death. I feel like there's a lot of Brendan Fraser memes of and like the famous thumbnail that everyone that's the only, like, there's a meme of like, is this the only image from The Whale? Like, it's this one shot of Brendan Fraser. But because it didn't do like amazing critically, like, it sits there around like your 60s and 70s and stuff like that. Yep. I didn't watch it, and I had this thing of like, it's not going to be good. Like, it's going to be disappointing. And I'd heard people talk about it being like a gross film, as in they're like, oh, it really goes into like the fat stuff. It's like they said it like, and I even found articles last night where it's like it's talking it up as in like they're doing all this gross stuff to make you be like, wow, he's disgusting. Like, he's a disgusting person. And I really thought this was going to be a difficult watch coming into it. Knowing Aronofsky, I was just like, it's going to be like, I'm going to have to watch him trying to wipe his ass on the toilet. Like, I was like, this is like, from what it was talked about, and it was like, oh, it's very fat phobic, and it's like, does this too, and watching it, it took me by surprise how much I enjoyed it. As in, I was like, this is a good film. Like, I feel like this is a good film. Great, like, good performances. Went directions I wasn't expecting, like with religion and everything like that, which made me really excited to hear your guys' thoughts on the film as well. But like, it never got to that point for me. Like, obviously there's a couple of scenes of him like pigging out on a bucket of KFC, but who hasn't done that?
I was gonna say, that's just a Tuesday night, right?
That's just a Tuesday night. I was sitting there on the couch eating a bucket of KFC, and he asked for the bucket, and I was like, oh shit, what's this symbolize? But it never got to that point where I felt like it was being like harsh or cruel just for cruelty's sake. And like there's a whole narrative around it, as in this movie's very fat phobic, and it paints people as that at this weight have to be depressed and all this, and I'm like, shut up. Like it tells this story, and I think it tells it well. Brendan Fraser is great in it. I was worried about him overacting. Even the first like 2 minutes when the movie starts and it's him jacking it, and that's probably the most gross scene of the whole movie. And then when he like stands up and you see his whole body for the first time, there was a part of me I was like, oh man, I was like, it's so over the top. I was like, this dude's freaking huge. Like, I don't know how I'm going to feel about this, but then that passes and it's like, okay, I like this film. The only thing I had about the film where I was like, this really feels like a play. And then afterwards, when it paused, I was like, this is based on a play. I was like, that makes a lot of sense. Like the structure of the way the scenes work with characters walking in, coming through the door, having a conversation, then walking like away. I was like, this feels like it's a play. And the 4:3 ratio is interesting as well. Like to make him apparently, make him look bigger and like take up the majority of the frame or whatever. But I thought it was a good film. And I feel like this was actually the most lighthearted. I feel like there was more comedy in this than other. Like, with him I don't know if it was meant to be funny. Him choking on the food and like.
I didn't find that funny.
But her reaction to it, where she's like elbow dropping him on the back, and then she's like, Jesus. She's like, my God, like she was very funny. I feel like a lot of the time. And yeah, I really enjoyed the movie. Sorry, I rambled on there. Conan.
No, you're right. Conan, that's all right. What's your opinion? Have you seen this before?
Yeah, I'd seen it. I saw it at cinema. Like a student of cinema that I am. I don't know. This movie doesn't work for me, and I'm not really sure why. Even again here, because I was the same when this was coming out. I was like, hell yeah, Aronofsky's back in form, doing a quiet drama about a broken man. It's the wrestler 2.0. Yeah, it's got Brendan Fraser. Like this is. I'm going to start jacking it in the cinematic disc. Like I was excited. And then the reviews came out, and like at one point, Metascore was like down to 50 something. I was like, oh crap, this is low even for him. Like Noah's got a higher Metascore. This is weird. But I saw it because like I heard Brendan Fraser was great, and I don't know, it just didn't work. It just didn't hit from in the center. It didn't hit from me again this time. There's something about it, and I really can't put my finger on it. It just
is it because he's fat? You don't like that?
Yes, and I don't like fat people. As a slender chat of a man, I'm like, I can't relate. I want to see the plight of a football. I just, I don't know.
That's why you like the wrestler. You're like, yeah, steroids.
Right in the butt cheek. No, I know. I really don't know what it is about it. I wonder if part of it is that, I don't know, Aronofsky didn't write this. Most of his other movies he's written or he's at least had some involvement in. Like, even though The Wrestler was written by Robert Siegel, but I think Aronofsky would have had a bit to like play with and, make on the fly. This feels very carefully manicured by, like, the author's this guy, Samuel D. Hunter. It's very autobiographical. He is an ex-Christian gay man. So it seems really like his life story, basically. And yeah, like to your point, Luke, it feels like a play. It is just kind of in one room, essentially.
Yeah.
I really don't know. I think this kind of movie stifles what Aronofsky's good at. It stifles his creative flourishes. He can't do anything interesting with the camera because there isn't really anything interesting here. There's no interesting filmmaking. There's no it's all pretty basic. It's all very static. It's all, there's no interest. I'm not saying there has to be like flashy montages or steady cam attached to the body or like right up in his face the whole time. But it's just fairly rudimentary. The only moment that's kind of stands out is like the flashbacks in the final scene where he, walks and then ascends to heaven, essentially. Mm-hmm. Then I'm like, that works. That's the emotional hit that I need. I want more sort of like almost surreal moments. But I don't know. The rest of it just doesn't hit. I think Brendan Fraser's amazing. Like, I think he deserves the Oscar for it. He's really, really good. But something about it just doesn't work for me. I think it's pretty heavy-handed. I really don't like the essay that he keeps bringing back to. And he's like, it's the best thing I've ever read. And I need to read this essay about Moby Dick. It's like, I get it. Moby Dick is a metaphor. You're also like the whale. It's very, very obvious. And not like in the cool way. It's like,
Yeah, it is
I don't know.
heavy-handed in that, but I don't know. It hit for me. Is it the most amazing filmmaking movie ever? Maybe not, and maybe I don't have the vocabulary to care about that, right?
No, it's like it's not like I'm not trying to be like, oh, it didn't do anything challenging enough to be good, because that's not the problem. That's not even a criticism. I'm not saying that at all.
Hmm.
I just found it very bland. Like I found it like a pretty standard, like this guy is struggling and everyone's talking about their struggles and feelings. And everyone's just like, man, it's really hard doing this. And she's like, I hate you. These are the things you did to me that I didn't like. And he's like, yes, but here's why I did them. And I don't know, like that's a play. And that's
It is
fine in
a
a
play. Yeah, I guess I understand that.
that's fine in a play, and dialogue. Movies can have lots of dialogue, but when it's just kind of characters being like, here's a like Hong Chow is really good, but every conversation with her, she's just kind of like, man, when you first met my brother and became his boyfriend, and you guys had a great relationship, and that's why we know each other. It really hurt when he died, and I know it hurt you because look at all this stuff you're doing. I was like, yes, we get it. I don't need you to explain it all to me.
That's not how it felt to me. To me, it felt like there was kind of this mystery, like why is he like this? Why is this woman coming around and enabling him and helping him? What happened between him and his wife? And I feel like you just kind of get this unraveling of the mystery as the movie goes on. And I don't know. It worked for me in that way. Maybe I'm dumb. I don't know. But
No, like,
I don't know. You're going to be like, no, I'm not. But it's fine. But I appreciated that mystery. And then the whole, like, him and his daughter, I found it, like, I enjoyed looking at that relationship and trying to decide, is she evil? Like, is it just through his eyes that she's a good person? Is he just like, is that essay even that great?
no, it's rubbish.
No, I know. And that's my conclusion is I think she's evil. And I don't think she was trying to help that guy. I don't think the essay was all that great. I don't think she wrote a haiku on purpose. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know. I enjoyed that journey.
So, like, yeah, I want what I'm interested in. I want your guys' opinions on the Christianity in this, why it's in there, what is that trying to tell, and what I wanted to know, what I was confused about was this whole side arc it takes about, oh, she's pure evil, like she's the devil incarnate. Where at a point where I was like, is this going to take a turn? Like, did she kill the bird? Like, what?
I think she killed the bird.
She killed the bird. Like, I was like, is she gonna kill him? Like, what's going on? I was like, and
Yeah.
there's a few scenes in it where it's like, I feel like it's creepy imagery where there's always, you always see the silhouette of someone walking past that window, even in the background. Like before, like, 5 seconds before someone knocks on the door, you see a silhouette walk past in the background. But like, I don't know, the imagery of like his bed with like the thing he has to hold on to, like it in the shadow in like this dark room, like there's something like, it feels like a scary house like a character in a video game would go into, where it's like, oh god, I'm walking around this like serial killer's house, like I've got to find the clues for something. It felt like there's something ominous in this house. But yeah, like I wanted your opinion, what your guys' thoughts were on like the whole evil thing with her and the Christianity arc with the missionary and what that's trying to tell, because basically at the end it's kind of like they're the bad guys in this story.
I think that's the answer to me. Like, I think that's the perspective of the writer, right? Like, my understanding is he's an ex-Christian. He probably faced a lot of persecution from the church for being homosexual, and so this is just him writing his experience, writing his
truth. Yeah.
yeah.
That's exactly right. Like that's his entire story. Like he was raised Christian. Yeah, all of what you said. Yeah, and like I don't have an issue with movies or stories being like, here's why we think, here's why the author thinks Christianity is wrong. Or here's the issue they have with it. That's fine. That's great. Those are good stories to tell and be like, because they help you understand what are some problems or issues with, institutions of religion and belief and how that all works. I don't know, in this one, it just kind of feels a little bit, it feels like a guy just writing down his thoughts, being like, why, he's like being like, I don't like Christianity because of what happened in my life. And here's all the issues. And that's good stuff to navigate. I just think it needs to be done in a little bit more of a subtle, or I don't know, dare I say, artistic way. Like, rather than just going, here is my manifesto of why I don't like religion, and now I'm going to have a character who's like, here's why I don't like religion. Or here's two characters who were just like, let's talk about why I don't like religion. I just found it a bit,
So
it didn't land for me. The missionary's whole thing, his drama, his arc doesn't land for me.
So is this movie, is it like a meta thing of Ellie's essay, where it's just this author's thoughts on like this thing
Kind
because of
of,
his
yeah.
personal view on it, and then he's just like,
Yeah.
this is bad because this happened to me, and this is the story of that.
I partially, yeah. I mean, he said in interviews, like when he wrote this because he was super overweight, and he said he found that people at the grocery store wouldn't even be polite to him. Like he said, he felt the disgust of people when he was at his worst.
Mm.
And then when he lost all his weight, went through severe depression and mental health issues, and then he noticed the difference. And he said that he noticed how different it is, and he wanted to explore that. But again, even with that, I'm not really sure I don't really know what he's trying to say with that in this then, because I don't know. Like, is Charlie entirely the victim of his own, of his own compulsion, or is he somewhat to blame?
Mm.
I don't. Yeah, I don't really know how to get a read on this. Like, there's all the ingredients, all the pieces for a good movie here. Just for whatever reason, they do not gel with me. I don't get it, and it's not. I hate the whole fat phobic argument against this. People who said this movie's fat phobic are dumb. They are dumb
I'm
people.
inclined to agree.
Mhm.
Yep.
They're just obnoxious idiots who are like, this movie dares to say that being obese isn't the greatest thing ever. It must be fat phobic. It's like, it's actually handled really, carefully and patiently, and like
being unable to support your own weight while you stand up. That should be healthy. Why isn't he?
Yeah.
Why isn't he showing that as healthy?
Yeah, exactly.
Why
Like,
is
that's
this
a
movie
great.
not more body positive about Charlie?
Like, yeah,
Why'd
those
you
are
have
the
to give him
takes.
heart disease? That's such a cliche that fat people have heart disease.
That's it. And those are the takes that I'm like, they don't even deserve to be engaged with. So
Yeah.
it's none of that I think is the issue. Just it just doesn't. None of it. All the pieces don't quite click for me. But like, again, I have a friend who said he really, really enjoyed it. Like, saw the movies, and I think like there's the emotional moment of watching it does work. Like, Aronofsky's really good at that, about capturing you in the feeling he's trying to create. Like, I watched The Fountain again recently, and that movie is all feeling. Like, you just get lost in the visuals and the music and the mood. And this movie does a good job of doing that. Like, you feel kind of trapped, like him. You feel so pitiful, and you feel his humanity as well.
Yeah.
So there are definitely things about it that work. I think it's just I don't know, the main text of it, like his journey to
It feels
trying to
basic.
be. Yeah, and that just sounds condescending. I'm not trying to. It does seem kind of like a rudimentary look on it, and just it doesn't work for me. It doesn't gel. But I don't like. Did you? I don't know. Why do you think it works so much for you guys? Like, what about it?
I don't know. Like, it is basic. You're right. Like, I'm not saying it's. Yeah.
No,
I think I was just there for the journey. I felt the emotion of those moments. I can relate to some of these things, right? And then him and his daughter, that relationship, and obviously I'm not estranged from my daughter yet, but it could happen. Sometimes I do think she's the devil incarnate. How do I prevent this from happening?
I have a daughter named Ellie who screams abuse at me all
Oh,
the
hell.
time, and and that's the thing. It's funny. Like, I enjoyed this film. I was like, I definitely went into it being like, okay, this is about Brendan Fraser's performance. That's what this movie
Yes,
is.
yeah.
It's weighted
Yep.
by his performance, and it's
Yep.
weighted heavily. But watching it, I was like, I don't know. I just was able to enjoy the ride. I definitely don't think it's his strongest film, and it's like, especially compared to the other two, I can see the flaws in it. And there's issues I had with it, where like, I don't say it as an insult where I'm like, it felt like a play, but it is kind of an insult when you watch a movie and it feels very like, oh, this is our space. But it's not like in the, oh, I feel constricted in this. It feels budgety in a way where it's like, okay, this is where we're filming. It's all laid out like how I was taught plays were in like year 10 drama. Where it's like, okay, the person enters from this side, they exit not here, and like they interact. Then another person comes in, they walk around this character, they talk to him, and then they leave as well. And it's the stuff outside of that that I feel like I enjoyed more, like the classes he does online. I enjoyed that, and like, you know, his voice feels very ominous in that as well. Like, where he's just this person in the dark talking, and when he, you know, shows himself and like seeing that reaction of people, and people pulling up their phones to take photos of it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, you feel like this, like, you feel shit for him. When his boy, you know, his boy, man, the Domino's delivery driver sees him, and he's basically just like,
Yeah.
ugh, and like runs away. It's like, God. And then he goes and binge eats because he's just like, rejection. I've been rejected
Yeah.
again. I'm gonna eat myself to death. But like, I don't know. I've struggled with my weight. I feel like a lot of my life, you know, I can stand and walk around on my own. Knock on the wood. But like, there's definitely part of me after I watched this movie, I was like, I'm like, am I wheezy? I was like, am I wheezy?
Can't listen to my
like,
chest. What's going on?
I was like, what's going on? What's going on? And I was like, Googling stuff. I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm good for now. I should be fine. But yeah, it definitely, I feel like, had an impact a bit as well. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like, I'm the same. I'm a heavy guy. I can relate to it as well. Like, there are parts of the work I've always said, like, it's worth seeing for Brendan Fraser's performance alone. Like, if it had a lesser actor doing it, it would be a mess, I think. But the way he sort of, I don't know, Nicolas Cage he could do anything. I think you need to stop hating on Nicolas Cage, dude.
Sorry.
He would just gain the weight for real, though. Method
Yeah.
acting.
He would go full method.
Should it have been Christian Bale, and should he have put on 500 pounds?
I just died when he truly did stand on his feet.
He dies filming. Oh, God.
There you go.
Sorry to interrupt. What did you think of the ending? Like, I'd seen the ending clip of him, like the lights coming on and him like ascending sort of thing. I'd seen that as like a meme and stuff like that, so I knew that this was the direction it was heading by the end of the movie. But yeah, what did you guys think about that?
It's a very strange choice. I don't know.
You hate these endings?
Yeah, I do. I do. I think they're a bit of a cop out, right? Like, would it be more sad to watch them have to take his body down those stairs? Do they burn the whole building down like What's Eating Gilbert Grape? Like,
I had the same thought. I'm like,
fall and crush her to death.
Yeah.
I had the same thought. I'm like, what are the logistics after this? Like,
yeah.
They wait for him to decompose to a skeleton.
Do you get a chainsaw or just take the arms and legs first? I don't know.
Yeah.
I really like it. I think the ending's great. I love this. I love the personal, like the logical death. We all know that he dies after that, but the personal redemption, like the wrestler does it, Black Swan does it, he does it, where he literally, like, the light of heaven enraptures him, which is again so weird because I'm like, it's got a lot of religious overtones.
And that's the thing, but it's him fighting against it, and is that like him being like, "Oh shit, it's real, I'm about to be judged"?
And this is where I get a bit confused with it, or a bit like, I don't really get what it's trying to say, because it's almost like there's this otherworldly, supernatural life that he achieves, Christian or not. But the movie spends so long being like, religion is bad, and look what it's done for us all. It's kind of caused all our problems. So I'm not, like, obviously, light in the sky is not religion. It's not Christianity. They don't own that. But it is weird in a movie that spends so long being like, religion causes the problems that create our lives, than to be like, he finds a supernatural existential salvation by walking. But just purely filming, I like it. I think it looks cool. And then it has the great flashback to the beach, and those beach scenes really friggin' worked for me. I don't know, just kind of this really dreamlike. I need more of that.
One happy memory sort of thing of the family.
Yeah. Just really effective. I found this great. There's just a review here that kind of sums my feelings up. I want to read. It's by someone writing for Slash Film, Marshall Schaefer. The Whale stays too intellectual in its exploration of the physical and spiritual dimensions of redemption to and from bodily captivity. This comes at the expense of the director's strengths in the visceral realm. I think that sums it up a lot. Like, it's a very talky, heady, like, trying to communicate these concepts and ideas, and not done enough in the, the characters don't do enough about that. IMO.
No, fair enough. And I think if I watch this again, I might be a bit bored, right? Like it would probably work less for me on a second viewing, I think. But on a first viewing, I was in for the journey. I was connecting with the characters, whether it was a bit rote or not.
Yeah, like I'm willing to be like I'm wrong in this. It doesn't, because I really is like I can't even communicate necessarily why I don't like it. It just doesn't never gels.
Oh, and I'm not saying it's like the best movie ever or anything like that, but I was there for the journey.
So was she evil? Is she evil? That's
my opinion. My opinion is he was seeing the best in her at every possible turn.
Yeah.
He found the haiku where there wasn't. There was one, but not on purpose.
Yeah.
He it's like the kid's painting on the fridge. It's kind of crap, but you put it up there. That's the essay.
Even like when she's going to read the essay, like it's like the first time it's not raining outside and it's all bright lights behind her. It's like he sees her as this like the one good thing that like no matter all the evidence, when like she's taking all these photos of him and posting it with like horrible captions.
I know, right? And like killing animals, and she's just
like the dead dogs. It's like a big. It's like not something that it can be like painted in a different light of like, oh, she was a bit troubled. It's like, no, they usually become serial killers. Like, is she a bad person?
Yeah, and I don't think she was trying to help the missionary guy. Like, I think she was trying to get him in trouble. And it's an interesting comparison to him where he wants her to have a good life, but it might be too late, and it's too late for him too. Like she's on a path now. She might get this $100,000, but it's too late, right? Like she's a product of her upbringing or whatever, and she's this person now who she is, and that's who she's going to be. He's a product of his past, and it's too late for him to change that. He's come to his end too.
That's it. Yeah, that is an interesting read. I guess he finds redemption, but it's a bittersweet because it's like he finds redemption, but not really because he'll still die. There is no afterlife.
He's unleashed a serial killer in the world.
And his daughter might be a murderer, so it's like this weird personal redemption, but in a really actually pretty tragic, like broader question. Yeah.
Did you think she was good?
No, I came out of being like I think I'm not supposed to know how to feel about her, but I definitely was more like if I had to pick, I'd be like, yeah, she's a bad person, which just kind of confused me because I'm like.
They never show anything against that. They never show her doing something good.
That's what I mean. And then, and she's kind of always, even when they're like, she might be a monster, there's never any sense of like, for me to sympathize with her. But aside from the whole, where's my father been? Which I'm like, is a problem, but it's very kind of like this poor creature, this poor girl, she has an absent father who's trying to reconnect, and she's probably a serial killer. But it's always like, but she's still a victim. I'm like, she should probably get some sort of, not condemnation, but like the movie seems pretty positive about her, even though she's,
But I think, to me, that's his perspective, I guess. I don't know.
But yeah, you're right. Yeah, if the movie's told from his perspective, so that makes sense.
And I think this movie's kind of about enablers too. Like his friend, just as much as she's like saving him, she's still feeding him. She's still getting him groceries. He's enabling his daughter to skip school and not do her own homework. He enables his wife by telling her where the alcohol is in the house.
Yeah.
Even the pizza delivery guy, it may not be like, it's unwitting, but he's also enabling his eating disorder. Like, I don't know.
But then, I don't know, then make a movie kind of about that. Make a movie about how we enable the problem people in our lives. And it's,
And the one person who's kind of not enabling him, the missionary, gets painted as the villain.
Yeah, he's kind of like the asshole, and he's
like, is he the one that's the opposite of the daughter?
Kind of being enabled by? But is he kind of being enabled by? Is it Charlie? Like to give him a missionary target, right? Like he talks about how like, I felt lost. I wanted to go door to door, but they wouldn't let me. I finally went door to door, and now I found a target. I found someone who I can save. And Charlie's kind of tolerating him for most of the movie until the end. He tolerates him coming over, and he gives him the hope that he thinks he can save him, right?
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. That was another reading I had. I felt watching this.
But that's a good example. I think there's a lot of ways this movie could have gone, and it doesn't do enough with any of them.
Maybe you're right. Yep.
But I don't know. I really want to love this movie. I really want to think it's great. I just can't. I don't know why.
Fair enough. All right. Anything else to say about the Darren Aronofsky Compulsion Trilogy?
Compulsion Trilogy.
One of 3 trilogies of his we all do. Yeah.
If only Randy the Ram had jerked off at some point, it could be the Masturbation Trilogy. But it doesn't.
The Sex is Bad Trilogy.
He gets it the old-fashioned way.
I think that Sex is Bad is the better reading of it.
Yeah.
No, I think we've said a lot.
Growing overall, did you like these films?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Let's rank them, I guess.
Yes.
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, you go
I'll
first.
go in pole position. Number 1 is The Wrestler. Number 2, The Whale. Number 3, Black Swan.
Ooh, interesting. Wrestler, Black Swan, The Whale.
Yeah, same for me.
Fair enough. I can understand why. Something about Black Swan doesn't. Maybe it's just because I don't ever.
You don't like
Mila
Kunis, Natalie Portman?
Oh look, I watched that scene on repeat. Don't get me wrong, but next fortnight, boys. I believe it's my turn. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of movies that were shot entirely in one room, I've got a trilogy that I've only seen the first of these, but I really loved it.
Oh yeah, I know what it is.
Teenager. Hey, do you? The Cube movies, Cube 1, 2, and 3. So they're available on Plex now for free. Finally, for a long, I've been trying to find them because I wanted to do this trilogy. But
Plex.
What the hell
Plex is free? It's free. It's ad supported streaming. You'll figure it out.
No, that's great. I've literally never heard of it.
Yeah,
awesome.
It's good. It's good service if you want to have a home media server. I will say that. But
I've never heard of these movies.
Cube.
Yeah, Cube's great, from what I remember.
Yeah, me too. I don't remember a lot of it. I watched it in high school and remember thinking, I'm cool because I've seen this independent horror movie.
I just know you've been talking about doing this trilogy since the start.
And the other two may very well be hot garbage, but we're doing it anyway.
I've seen the second one, and there's one thing I really remember something about it, like a scene from it still.
Actually, I think I might have seen the second one too, actually.
Yeah. I'm excited to watch these again.
Cool.
Very cool.
All right. Thanks for joining us for The Good, the Bad, and the Worst. This podcast was brought to you by The Taste of Iron and God Grotesque. God Grotesque by one CV Clark. Get these books. I'm trying to think of a link to Aronofsky. Someone else can maybe go.
Sex is bad. That's
sex
true.
Is bad. There you go.
God is not grotesque, but sex is.
Give us a rating on Spotify. Leave us a review. Share us with your friends, and we'll catch you next time.
Peace.